Good morning. Today we have the hip erythroplasty normal and abnormal imaging findings. Hip erythroplasty radiography is the primary imaging method for evaluation of total hip erythroplasty. This overview focuses on the normal finding and the complication of the cemented versus non-cemented hip erythroplasties. The modern total hip erythroplasty system are modular. This means that the femoral stem, head, acetabular shell, and linear are separate pieces. This modularity allows for greater flexibility in customizing the prosthesis sizing and fit. The acetabular part is usually a polyethylene linear with or without metal backing. Fixation is with cement spike screw or cementless with porous coating for bone ingrowth. The femoral part is composed of metal stem, chromium, cobalt, or titanium, and a femoral head of metal or ceramic. Stem fixation is also either with cement or cementless with porous coating for bone ingrowth. Most modern non-cemented total hip erythroplasty have a femoral stem with only proximal coating, as this results in better long-term outcome than a fully coated with less loosening. Some of non-cemented total hip erythroplasty have femoral stem with additional hydroxyapatite coating, which further improve the bone ingrowth. This coating total hip replacement are a combination of cement and cementless fixation. As cemented acetabular component have tendency to loosen over time. The combination of cementless acetabular component with a cemented femoral component is sometimes used. Overall, there is tendency to use preferably non-cemented total hip erythroplasty, which have better long-term result. The left radiograph showing the hypertotal hip erythroplasty with bone ingrowth acetabular cup and cemented femoral component, and next to it there is non-cemented bone ingrowth total hip erythroplasty. The initial evaluation. Initial films serve as a baseline study and are used as a reference film for comparison with all future radiography or a future study, since sequential radiography is the most valuable method for detecting complication. The initial postoperative film are options to look for the possible dislocation or fracture and to see if the prosthesis is good positioned. Complication of total hip erythroplasty. First of all, we have dislocation. Dislocation can occur as a late complication in prosthesis that are not well positioned, but is most common in immediate post-operative period with the incidence of 3%. Periprosthetic fracture. A fracture may be seen post-operatively in patients with poor bone stock and long-term revision prosthesis, or when the anatomy is abnormal, as in hip dysplasia or rear surgery. There are also more common in non-cemented femoral stem, as these have to fix exactly and can cause a fracture during insertion. The incidence of a fracture ranges from 0.1 to 1% for cemented component and 3 to 18% for uncemented component. Most intraoperative fracture occur on the femoral side. The left radiograph show the femoral stem with periprosthetic fracture, and the right one shows the cement extrusion with intrapelvic acetabular defect. Cement extrusion, when the acetabulum is prepared for the placement of the cup, a perforation may occur. This defect is filled with bone-shaped cement or bone transplant. Cement extrusion is usually asymptomatic, with rare complications include the bowel fistula, encasement of a neurovascular structure, and the bladder wall burn. Alignment and positioning. Acetabular and femoral component positioning should mimic normal anatomy. The distance from the center of the femoral head to teardrop should equal bilaterally. This is called horizontal center of rotation. Excessive lateral positioning of acetabular components increase the risk of dislocation and may cause limping. Transischial line is used as a reference to measure the lateral inclination of acetabular cup, which should measure 30 to 50 degrees. This line is also used to measure any ligament discrepancy. Ligament discrepancy up to 1 cm is well tolerated. A high positioned cup is better tolerated than a lateral positioned cup. The anteversion of the acetabular cup should be between 5 to 25 degrees. Exact measurement of this angle with on a gross table or true lateral radiograph is not possible, since the apparent degree of angulation or radiograph is affected by pelvic or thigh rotation. Measurement with CT is more accurate, but you still have to compensate for pelvic angulation. The following condition predispose to dislocation: increase the lateral inclination of acetabular cup, decrease or increase anteversion of cup, excessive lateral positioning of acetabular cup, increase or decrease anteversion of femoral stem. Due to increased forces on the superior lateral margin of the cup, increased lateral inclination of the acetabular component also may increase the risk of polyethylene wear of the acetabular vena. This radiograph shows the dislocation due to increased the lateral inclination of the acetabular cup. The peripheral position of femoral component is with the stem centered in the femoral canal. The center of the rotation of femoral head should be at the level of the tip of the greater trochanter. Varus position of the femoral stem predisposed to loosening and fracture, as we are seeing in these radiographs. Normal finding at follow-up. First of all, we have cemented total hip erythroplasty. Normal finding in cemented total hip erythroplasty are different from non-cemented prosthesis, as the native bone show more reactive changes to non-cemented prosthesis. In cemented total hip erythroplasty, ideally, we would not expect any lucency at the bone cement or cement prosthesis interface, but even in stable cement prosthesis, they do occur. A lucency at metal cement interface along the proximal lateral aspect of the femoral stem may be seen on the initial post-operative radiograph as a reflection of suboptimal metal cement contact at the time of surgery. A stable lucent zone is good, but if the lucency enlarge or develop at the metal cement interface during follow-up, then it is the sign of loosening. Ideally, there is only 3 to 4 millimeters of layer of cement around the prosthesis. Abundant cement packing lead to loosening. This radiograph showing the yellow and the orange arrow. The yellow arrow represents the lucency, which can be normally occur after the surgery, while the orange arrow showing the lucent zone, which is the sign of loosening that can be detected at follow-up. At the bone cement interface, a thin fibrous layer may form as a response to local necrosis of the osseous tissue due to the heat of the cement polymerization. It becomes stable by 2 years. Under the radiogram, this layer is seen as the lucent zone, especially in acetabular zone 1. A 1 to 2 millimeter lucency frequently seen at the bone cement interface. This can be considered as the normal finding. It's also another zone. Other zones are involved and the lucency widen is, however, the sign of loosening. In the acetabulum, we have 3 zones, 1 to 3. It's quite common to see radiolucent line in zone 1, but you shouldn't see it in zone 2 or 3. Similarly, in the femur, there are zone 1 to 7. It's very common to see radiolucency in zone 1. Occasionally in zone 7 also can be seen, but should not be seen in zone 2 to 6. Non-cemented total hip erythroplasty, the implantation of the bone ingrowth prosthesis results in altered stress distribution to the native bone, especially in older models with non-tapered and fully coated femoral stem. Stress shielding proximally may result in proximal osteoporosis and calcar resorption. Stress loading distally may result in cortical thickening and bridging sclerosis at the tip of the prosthesis called pedestal. In an effort to avoid these changes, most modern cementless prostheses only have fixation proximally, so you usually will not find the proximal stress shielding. The distal part of the femoral prosthesis is not loaded, so there will be no distal stress loading. In a stable, non-cemented hip erythroplasty, lucent zone at the metal bone interface do occur, as it's usually in combination of bone ingrowth and fibrous tissue ingrowth that provide the fixation in most cases. This fibrous tissue present a lucent zone at the interface, and again, it should not be no more than 1 to 2 millimeters. Thin lucent zone along the bone metal interface due to fibrous tissue are therefore common. In 80% of the case, should be less than 2 millimeters, accompanied by sclerotic line parallel to it. If it stays stable for 2 years, then fixation by strong fibrous tissue has taken place. Stress shielding or bone resorption is seen in areas that are relatively unstressed. The forces are transmitted through relative stiff femoral stem and seen as osteoporosis in the proximal femur, the thinning of cortex, and bone resorption of femoral neck. This is called calcar resorption. As the calcar has lost its function, it's called calcar round-off, as we are seeing in this radiograph. Complication of follow-up. The complications of total hip arthroplasty at follow-up are many, and the radiographic follow-up and comparison with all the film available in most valuable method for detecting these complications. Most important complications represent mechanical loosening, particle disease, and infection. These complications, however, may have similar imaging finding and overlap exist. First of all, we have mechanical loosening, which is present as the diffuse lucency, the particle disease present as a focal lucency, and the evidence of polyethylene wear, which appear as asymmetric positioning of the femoral head within the acetabular cup, often coexist with the particle disease. Infection present as irregular lucency with periosseal reaction, but may be difficult to differentiate from loosening and the particle disease. Infection often low-grade and is difficult to detect with any imaging method. In more aggressive cases, there will be irregular osteolysis, non-sclerotic border, cortical bone resorption, and periosseal reaction. This radiograph shows the progressive lucene zone around the acetabular component in zone 1 and 2 and considered abnormal because the lucency present in zone 2. Loosening. Mechanical loosening remains the most common indication for revision. Patients are usually symptomatic, although asymptomatic radiograph may be seen. The most common radiographic manifestation is the lucene zone more than 2 mm and component migration. A lucene zone for more than 2 mm at the bone prosthesis interface or bone cement interface, very indicative for loosening, especially if more zones are involved and if there is progression. Component migration is diagnostic for loosening. It's seen as tilting or gradient migration of the acetabular cup or as subsidence more than 10 mm and varus tilting of the femoral stem as we are seeing in this radiograph. As migration can be very subtle, it's required careful comparison with the initial postoperative film. Don't just compare to the period examination, but also we must use a reference point which makes the migration is better appreciated. This radiograph is showing the migration of the acetabular cup. When we are using the teardrop landmark, the migration is become more evident and it's complicated by the fracture at the acetabular component as pointed by the blue arrow. Migration of acetabular component is never acceptable. It's seen as the upward movement or tilting of the cup as we are seeing in this radiograph. This case, for several reasons, is not ideal because there is high and very lateral positioning of the cup, too much lateral inclination, abundant cement backing, screws are positioned too horizontally, and the lucency is present in zone 2 and 3, which are more than 2 mm. Especially lucency in this zone is very indicative of loosening. And during follow-up, upward migration with increased tilting is seen causing fixation screw to break. Particle disease. Originally, this was called cement disease or aggressive granulomatosis. It is histocytic response that occurs as a result of macrophage reaction to any of the components that are shed of the surface of the component of the erythroplasty. Nowadays, it's mostly seen in non-cemented hip as a reaction to small polyethylene wear particles. Radiographically, this aggressive granulomatous reaction present as focal lucency around the prosthesis. The condition tended to occur between 1 to 5 years after surgery and is associated with a smooth industrial scalloping. The key feature is that it produces no secondary bone response. This feature is used to differentiate it from the infection, although this distinction is not always possible. Although the particle disease is a result of polyethylene wear, you will always not always see evident finding of polyethylene wear in the acetabular cup. But whenever you see an eccentric position of the femoral head within the cup, look for the focal lucency. Large focal defect may be seen while the prosthesis is still stable. This radiograph shows the eccentric position of the femoral head within the cup consistent with polyethylene wear. The small wear particles of the polyethylene linear are shed into the joint fluid and can be transported around the prosthesis through the small channel even in stable hips. They have a tendency to be transported through the screw holes. This is why the surgeons are more and more reluctant to use screws for the fixation of acetabular cup. This radiograph shows the subtle eccentric position of the femoral head, even more subtle focal osteolysis around the screw and the acetabulum. Another case showed there is focal osteolysis around the screw after migration of wear particle through the screw holes, eccentric position of the femoral head within the acetabular cup as a result of polyethylene wear. Particle disease is progressive, which can be complicated by the loosening, fracture, and destruction of bone. Sometimes revision of a stable total hip arthroplasty is needed because more bone loss would make revision surgery impossible. Polyethylene wear. Normal loading of polyethylene cups comes up the femoral shaft along the femoral neck toward the lumbar spine. So it's normal to see slight thinning in the area of the weight bearing at the plastic molds itself. This remolding is called creep. Abnormal loading lead to pressure more lateral, result in polyethylene wear on superior lateral aspect. Infection, another complication of total hip arthroplasty. In a patient with low-grade infection, the infection is maybe unremarkable or may mimic loosening or small particle disease. With more aggressive organism, a progression can be rapid with bone destruction and sinus tract formation. So the uniform criteria for diagnosis of infection associated with the prosthesis is one of the following criteria. The same microorganism in two culture of synovial fluid, purulence of synovial fluid at the implant site, inflammation of pathological examination of periprosthetic tissue, the presence of sinus tract communicating with the prosthesis. This case showed the typical radiographic finding of infection with irregular bone destruction and periosteal reaction. In many cases, however, the infection is really low-grade and difficult to establish. Radionuclide bone scan are very sensitive to the infection but not specific, as they may show the findings similar to those occurring in loosening. Negative finding on bone scan suggests that there is no infection exists. The rule of dedicated radionuclide technique for the infection such as gallium scanning or indium-labeled white blood cell or immunoglobulin G is not clear, but they tend to be a bit more specific compared to normal technician bone scan. Most researchers advocate fluoroscopic or sonographic guided joint aspiration to assess infection. Several samples should be taken to minimize confusion caused by the skin contaminant. Infection up to 1 year after the insertion of the prosthesis are acquired during implantation. The risk of the intraoperative infection is less than 1% due to the use of antimicrobial prophylaxis and laminar airflow surgical environment. Late infection are acquired by hematogenous seeding from respiratory, dental, or urinary tract infection. This radiograph shows the irregular periprosthetic bone resorption with periosteal reaction typical for the infection. The fracture. The incidence postoperatively for cemented total hip arthroplasty is 0.4%, and press fit prosthesis 2.5%, and revision hip arthroplasty about 7%. Usually does not affect outcome, but may require subclass cable. Sometimes a control perforation is placed by the surgeon during revision to aid in removal of the previously placed femoral component. Fracture during follow-up are a result of loosening, particle disease, infection, or severe case of stress showing. Dislocation or subluxation of the component may occur because of the patient factor, include poor muscle tone or trauma, or because of the surgical factor, such as posterior surgical approach. Another factor is difficulty in achieving ideal angulation of acetabular component. This is usually the result of severe degenerative changes or dysplasia. Dislocation can be in posterior, anterior, or lateral direction, as we are seeing in these radiographs. Component fracture is uncommon. This case is probably secondary to severe polyethylene wear resulting in cup and cement fracture component dissociation, as opposed to component fracture most commonly developed when the plastic linear of the acetabulum slips from its backing. This radiograph shows the fracture of the metal head of the femoral component, and another picture showing the severe wear and the fracture of polyethylene linear. The metal backing is still intact. Heterotropic ossification occurs when primitive mesenchymal cells in surrounding soft tissue are transformed into osteoblastic cells that form mature lamellar bone. It's typically occur around the femoral neck and adjacent to the greater trochanter and present in 15 to 50% of the patients. Many patients with radiographically low-grade heterotropic ossification are asymptomatic. If it's become symptomatic, hip stiffness is the most common complaint, and the pain is rarely the problem. The classification of heterotropic ossification, we have 4 grades. A grade 1 show the islands of bone within the soft tissue. A grade 2, bone spurs leaving more than 1 cm between opposing bone surface. A grade 3, bone spur leaving less than 1 cm between opposing bone surface. And grade 4, radiographic ankylosis of hip. Finally, we have the role of erythrography in total hip erythroplasty. Erythrography and the infection play a role in evaluation of possible infection. Its value in evaluation of possible loosening and painful hip is limited. The erythrogram is used to confirm the intra-articular position of the needle, and the fluid is aspirated for aerobic and anaerobic culture. The sensitivity for infection is 66 to 90%. Erythrography and loosening. Lack of abnormal contrast extension doesn't exclude loosening as fibrosis, and cell may veer the interface, preventing the contrast passage. In non-cemented total hip erythroplasty, erythrography is not accurate for the detection of loosening, as small channel between bone ingrowth may persist, allowing contrast passage in stable hips. In cemented total hip erythroplasty, contrast extension at the bone cement interface can indicate a prosthesis loosening. Subtraction erythrography, as we are seeing in this radiograph, reveal the contrast leakage in Poisson zone 1. Movement of the patient simulate leakage in zone 2 and 3. Communication with trochanteric bursa, which is common, further reduce sensitivity as a good intra-articular pressure cannot be established. Erythrography and painful hip. Sometimes erythrography is used to find out if the patient's symptoms subside by putting in a long-lasting local anesthetic. This is to see if the painful hip is due to the prosthesis and not something else. This radiograph shows the communication between the intra-articular space and the trochanteric bursa. This is the reference, and thank you.